night on our... Hey everybody, like we said on the last live stream, we finally got our harvest right back up and running. And if you don't know what a harvest right is, it's a freeze dryer. I don't know if anybody that's watching this channel probably already knows what it is, but anyway. So I thought I would go through and detail the ordeal that we went through in order to get it working. So stick around. Alright, hey, welcome back to Grumpy Acres. If you're on our last live stream, you did hear us talk about getting the freeze dryer up and running. And it was a real ordeal getting it up and fixed. So we bought our freeze dryer used from some friends of ours about 7-8 years ago. About that long ago. And we ran it non-stop. And we burned out a pump, and we burned out a tray on it, and it just stopped working properly. So we had to do that. It ended up costing us over the years about $900 to $1,000 to keep it up and running. And it's like any other piece of equipment. You've got to maintain it, and you got to keep it going. We got a lot of use out of it. It ran 24/7. We had it down in the processing kitchen at the old house, and we managed to put away a lot of our extra produce and a lot of our extra meat and take care of that long-term food storage problem. And we made things like this. This is actually the first batch we ran through the freeze dryer after we got it fixed. Freeze dried Skittles. So we got a whole big pile of them right here. I gotta make labels for them, and we got to get them sealed up properly. But you know, we've definitely made our money back from it. So anyway, we moved here. We didn't have a 220 circuit for it to run on, so we had to wait and get one of those installed. And once we got it installed, we started running again. Well, it had been sitting for about 6 months. And like any piece of equipment, especially a pump that's got oil in it, even though I drained the oil before we put it in storage, it wasn't running quite perfectly right. And eventually what happened was, back in early July, I was running it through a cycle, and the trays got so hot that they melted the plastic. There's corrugated plastic on the top and the bottom as insulation, and it literally melted that plastic. And it wouldn't keep an even temperature. Whenever it was plugged in and running, it was reading the wrong temperature. The thermistor went out on it, but it burned up. It burned up the shelving unit is what happened. The shelving unit got so hot that I had to use oven mitts to get it out once on the last time, and then it finally quit working. Well, anyway, I contacted Harvest Right and got in touch with their tech support people, and the first thing they wanted to do was upgrade the firmware. And I'm an IT guy, so I know about firmware and I know all that, and they wanted to upgrade it, and I thought to myself, I said, this isn't good. This is an older model. It was a first generation Harvest Right. It was extremely outdated, or it is extremely or I should say it was, because that's part of the story. But anyway, I went ahead against my better judgment, and I upgraded the firmware like they asked me to. Well, my machine was so far out of date and the hardware was so old that the new firmware literally bricked the system. And when I say it bricked it, it would not power on, it would not do anything. It was dead. Wouldn't boot up to undo the upgrade, wouldn't do anything. So we went back and forth, and to Harvest Right's credit, since they bricked my system, they took full responsibility for it, and they fixed that portion of it for free. And what they did to fix it was they sent me a new controller board and a new relay board. Because on the freeze dryer controls, if you're looking at the little LCD panel, you've got that panel, then there's a controller board behind it, and then there's a relay board that handles all the heating elements on the drying trays. So they replaced both those for free. And in fact, they replaced the relay board twice, because after I installed the new boards, I fired it up and it was still doing the same exact thing. And I pretty much, at that point, I pretty much figured out what the problem was. And I told them several times, but they wanted to go through their script of fixing it, which I understand as an IT guy. I understand it. I don't hold that against them. It did add a couple extra weeks to the process. As a consumer, it's really irritating. But they stepped through their process, and they finally agreed with me that the problem was the tray itself. And there's a thing called a thermistor on there, which is a resistor that reacts to heat, and that you can tell temperature by, and that's what they use to control the heat on the trays. So they said instead of buying a new one, I could send my old one in and have it repaired for $100. I was like, deal, because a new tray costs about $600, and it's rather expensive now. It was expensive the first time we replaced one. It was only $400, and it's gone up $200 in the last 5 years. So it was a deal. So I had to pay shipping. So at this point, I'm $30 in because they haven't charged me the $100 yet. And they got it, and about a week later, I got an email back from the tech, and he said that the tray was completely shot. It would cost more to refurb the tray and fix it than to buy a new one. And then he said he had a buyer's remorse tray on hand, or shelving unit, that he could sell me for $300. I was like, done. So got it back this last weekend, got it plugged in, ran a quick cycle for the Skittles, because it doesn't take that long to freeze dry Skittles. You're actually not running a full cycle. But I did that, and I ran all the diagnostics, and it worked perfectly. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. So for, gosh, the price of the new tray plus the shipping to ship the old one back, for $330 out of this whole ordeal, I got a new controller board, I got a new relay board, and they are the latest versions, and they will handle all the firmware upgrades and all the things that they plan on doing in the near future. And I got a new drying shelf. It took 2 months, but for that price, I really can't complain. Now, we ran a cycle yesterday. Angela started doing some peas and corn in a cycle, and we received a new error yesterday, and it said could not get cold enough. And I kind of tried to explain it last night, but she was chasing squirrels, and it got kind of confusing. So basically, what I think happened was there's an insulated pillow that you put inside the door, and that keeps the cold air from getting to the plexiglass. Well, when I went in there, when I got home yesterday, the humidity was so high that there was water pouring off the outside of the door. And I think what happened was, since we never used that pillow because it was always in an air-conditioned area. It was down in our processing kitchen, which was in the basement, had dirt outside the concrete walls, and it stayed. I think the hottest it got down there was like 75 on a really hot day, and that was without an air conditioner. When the air conditioner was running, it stayed between 60 and 65 all the time, even in the wintertime. It stayed warm down there, warmer than upstairs sometimes. But so we never had to use the pillow. Well, it's so hot and humid here, and we're running it in a room with no air conditioning. I think all the cold air was just getting out of the door, and it just never got a chance to get as cold. So I stopped it, and it was sitting right around negative 15 degrees, and so I ran an extra line, put an extra long drying cycle on it manually, and it's in there almost done. I've got a couple 3 more hours to do. Now, might sound from my story like Harvest Right's customer service and tech support is terrible. And if you listen to a lot of people talk, I was talking to somebody at the Homesteaders potluck. One of our friends bought one after he saw ours, and he has only had his for about a year, and not even a year, and so far he said he's had to replace the pump, the controller board, and the shelving unit. And what that tells me is there's a problem with quality control on the factory side of it. And if you think about it, it makes sense, and I'm not excusing it, because from a from an IT and a customer standpoint, it's really unacceptable. But understanding the IT world and understanding manufacturing the way I do for computers and such, you know, Harvest Right went from a very niche company 4 or 5 years ago. Over the last couple of years, I was talking with their tech. Their sales have increased something like 500 or 600%, and that's a lot, especially when you start out as a small company and you have to expand like that. You end up with a lot of growing pains. And unfortunately, people right now that are buying new Harvest Rights or dealing with service support problems that they haven't had before are dealing with those growing pains. And I would not, if you're thinking about buying a Harvest Right, do not let that persuade you not to, all right? Take it into consideration and understand there might be some issues. You might have to have stuff replaced. It might take a little while longer than you wish, especially when you pay as much money as you pay for a brand new Harvest Right. But I'm going to say this about their tech support team and the service guys. Despite all these problems and despite it taking a long time, they are very conscientious and they are very concerned about getting you up and running as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, they're inundated right now. They're swamped, and the inherent delays in support cause a lot of frustration on people's part. Our friend with the Harvest Right, he loves his Harvest Right, but he was extremely frustrated with the whole process of getting it fixed, and it's understandable. And like I said, I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that it's any way acceptable, but it's understandable. And I don't know about you, but if I held everything that everybody did that bothered me against them, even if there was something understandable behind it, I would be such a hypocrite, it's not even funny, all right? It's just one of those things that we deal with. As time goes on, assuming that things get better and there's not as much chaos in the world, their tech support and their service support is going to catch up to demand, and they're going to go back to being having a really good reputation. You know, and I hate to say that. I hate to say that their reputation is a little bit tarnished, but if you talk to people out there, there's a lot of people that think negatively of them. But okay, well, that's it. If you guys got any questions about Harvest Right, freeze dryers, or you want to see more freeze drying videos now that we've got it up and running, Angela makes single serve meals. We freeze dry enough stuff sometimes to put in 5-gallon buckets. You know, it just depends on what we got going on and what we've got access to. But if you want to see that stuff, go ahead and say so down in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up. That'll tell us that you want to see more of them. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so you know when we drop our next video. Tag and I are doing the 4th episode of the What is Freedom, the 28 Principles video. We're doing that. It's going to come out next Friday. This is going to show. If you watch this when it first comes out, it's on a Tuesday, so we got 2 or 3 days. Like we said at the last live, Yoda's going to get more involved, and she's doing more canning videos for you. In fact, we're working on a canning safety video right now, which is really important because we've had a couple of incidences, and we've had other people we've been watching. They've talked about some stuff that's happened, and there is a lot of safety stuff involved even when you're water bathing. Pressure canners just add another level of complexity onto that. So we're going to do that for you, and hopefully we'll get that out this week. If not this week, the beginning of next week. But anyway, that's all I got for this morning. I know it's kind of a short video after the hour-long live last night. I just didn't have time to make one. This is just a quick video for you guys, and I thought I'd expand on something we talked about last night. So I'm going to go get ready for the JOB. I want you guys to go out and live a life free.
Thanks, Milo.